Well, hello and welcome to week 4 of our Introduction to Meditation series. Thank you so much for joining. Tonight, we're going to do some meditation. I'm going to build on the theme that I started last week about some of the glitches in the mind and how we can overcome them and why meditation can help. And then we're going to learn a new meditation technique or a variation on of this mindfulness stuff. But let's begin with meditation, simple, classic, bringing our awareness into this moment, looking at the breath. So if I can invite you all to take your seat, whether you're on a cushion or in a chair, and make yourself comfortable, but with some level of alertness and concentration, and invite you to take a deep breath in and let it all the way out. And once again, take a nice deep breath in, but this time hold it at the top for a moment. And this time let it out very slowly, releasing any tension you're holding in your face, in your shoulders, in your body. And allow your breathing to return to normal. And just invite you to notice what pressures you're bringing to tonight, your responsibilities, your to-dos, your worries, your hopes, your fears, all that stuff we carry around with us in our head. Just see if you can be aware of all of that. And I'm sure it's mostly important and needs attention. But just see if you can allow yourself to put it down as much as possible for the next 90 minutes. We're just going to take a break. It's like a mini vacation or holiday from your mind. And we're just going to be as present as we can for these 90 minutes. Invite you to get present with your body, noticing the different sensations you can feel. Just noticing your feet on the floor, the weight of your body in your chair or on your cushion. Aware of your arms, your hands, wherever they're resting. And now we're very gently going to bring our attention to notice the sensation of breathing. Perhaps narrowing our focus just to that first point where the air enters the nose or the mouth. We're just trying to let everything else go and bring ourselves into the present, into this moment. Really paying attention to these sensations, which only ever happen for a moment. So moment to moment, noticing the inhale, noticing the exhale. And you may already notice your mind trying to think about other things, worries, problems, sorting things out, remembering things, imagining things. We can't fight that. We don't try. We're choosing to place our attention and our focus into this moment, this breath. And see if you can just let the mind fall into the background, still doing its thing, but you're not paying attention to it. Instead, really focusing on this next breath. Once again, just noticing where your attention is. And just playing this game of seeing if you can simply be aware of where your attention goes. And then hopefully, without judgment, just aware of your mind. And then practicing letting it go and starting again, refocusing on the next breath. I invite you to expand your attention beyond just this breath. Also notice the different sensations in your body. Perhaps the heaviness of your shoulders, your feet on the floor, your arms against your side. In this moment, you have this breath and all of the sensations across your whole body. Just a few minutes left. Just encourage you to keep persevering. It really doesn't matter how busy your mind is, how often you get distracted. Every moment is an opportunity to start again. Maybe look really closely at that sensation of breathing, or the sensation of your fingertips, or your feet. Or notice how the texture of your clothing is shifting as you breathe ever so slightly. Just bringing yourself into this moment. The last couple of breaths. Really seeing if you can let everything go. Just be as fully present as you can. Invite you to take a deep breath in. Let it all the way out. As always, be quite gentle as you transition out of the meditation. Perhaps opening your eyes, noticing the different colors, shapes in the room around you, connecting fully into your room. Well, week 4, making progress. And we're flying through this. So I want to keep building on what I was talking about last week. And if you weren't here last week, don't worry about it. I'll explain. And I just want to sort of start by talking a little bit more about how the mind, while it is brilliant and it is amazing, this human consciousness thing we have going on, absolutely extraordinary, but there are a couple of flaws, and just highlight maybe a little bit more about why we do this meditation thing and this very strange exercise of, focusing on the breathing and getting distracted and then coming and get back. And on the one hand, of course, we do it because maybe you do it for a bit and then you feel a bit better and you think, oh yeah, this is right. But I think there are many, many much more profound reasons. So, and I want to look at least one aspect of that tonight. And I thought I would illustrate this with a couple of stories, scenarios, completely hypothetical. One is, let's say you're at work and you see that your boss, normally a grump, and you go and say, good morning, and they give you this big smile and they say, good morning. And they seem to be in this great mood. And they ask you a little bit about yourself and how you are and what's up. And you go back to your desk and you think, okay, smiling. I've heard, there's a bit of movement. There might be a promotion. I might make some more money. If I get some more money, I could get a bigger kitchen or a better car, or I could move house, and maybe then I could actually get a proper job somewhere else. And then my spouse would actually like me, and I would feel successful, and I would have proven my parents wrong, and I could make all this money, and then I would be really happy, and I would have the car and the house and all this stuff. And we do this thing. We take a tiny piece of information and we extrapolate. And all of a sudden, we are living this fantastic life on a beach in St. Lucia, surrounded by lots of beautiful people, all of whom like us. The other scenario, you come home and you meet your partner. Let's say, in my case, let's say I come home and I see my girlfriend, and she's got this big frown on her face. She looks at me and she's frowning. And all of a sudden, in a split moment, something's wrong. I've done something wrong. The relationship's over. She's going to leave me. She's going to be incredibly happy with somebody else. I'm going to be miserable. I'm going to be alone. That's it. Nobody ever loved me. Nobody will ever love me. I'm going to die alone. I'm going to be miserable for the rest of my life. What's actually happened is that your boss, it turns out, has got a raise. Not going to give you one. And your girlfriend just ate something bad for lunch and she's got stomach cramps. That's it. But we do this thing with our mind. We extrapolate from small bits of information to create these hypotheses about what does it all mean. Now, this aspect of the mind, this ability to take small bits of information and extrapolate, and using logic and imagination and creativity, we can make that mean other things, and we can conjure up different ideas. And human society and our entire history is made up of this extraordinary capacity we have to be able to build from what we can see in front of us to something completely different. If you look at art, music, architecture, engineering, culture, society, so many of the things that we as a species can be very proud of are built out of this ability of us to take small bits of information and then to build on them. It's amazing. It's completely amazing. And there's nothing wrong, of course, with taking bits of information and trying to work out what they might mean. So your boss is smiling. What might that mean? Your girlfriend is frowning. What might that mean? This is what makes us human. There's a personal development organization out there called Landmark Development. And this is one of their big things, is they try to explain this trick of the mind that we are what they call, we are meaning-making machines. So everything we see, everything we interpret, everything we experience, we have to make that mean something. And you can see this throughout human history in many very constructive ways, but also in some clearly very flawed ways. In the ancient religions, somebody, let's say, somebody killed a certain animal, and then it didn't rain for days and days and days. They assume that killing that animal, they make that mean something, that this must have made the gods angry, and that therefore we must do something in order to make the gods less angry. And that's obviously a trivial example, but we've done that throughout history, and it's the way human beings are. We tend to take small bits of information and we extrapolate. And sometimes we're right. Now, in the scientific process, for example, this is the entire scientific process. They take small amounts of information, small amounts of recorded data, something we record, and then they create hypotheses. And they say, well, this might mean that, or it could mean the other thing. And then they test it. Now, as human beings, one of the mistakes we make is that very often we believe in our own brilliance. We have all this wisdom and experience and logic and rationale and wisdom. And so therefore we get a couple of bits of information and we make meaning out of it. We turn that into something. And instead of doing that thing of thinking, well, it might mean this, or it could mean that, what we tend to do is we go, this means that. And then we can create an entire imaginary world completely in our mind that is not real, not true, but it feels true because That's where our brain has taken us. I think the truth is that if we were perfectly rational, logical creatures, this might work quite well more of the time than it does. The problem is that we are not rational, logical creatures. We have that within us. We have that ability. But primarily, your mind was not built to be rational. It wasn't built to be logical, and it wasn't built to make you happy. Your mind is there for one purpose, really. From an evolutionary perspective, the evolutionary biologists, it is there to keep you alive so that your genes get into the next generation. But it's really about survival. And last week I talked about these 3 aspects of human psychology, which make sense from a survival point of view, but boy, are they destructive from a happiness point of view, or from being in touch with reality point of view. And those 3 things are, on the one hand, so one of these things are that most of the time, we are built to want more. We are built to be dissatisfied with what we have very quickly. There's an immediate, if you want something and you get it, there's an immediate sense of satisfaction. There's a reward. You feel good about it. But very quickly, that goes away. And we become dissatisfied and we want more. It's that sort of dissatisfaction protocol that has helped us survive because we're always trying to get more. Another one of these little aspects of human psychology is the fact that we are programmed to have a negativity bias, by which I mean that when you look at everything that's right in your life, everything that you could be grateful for, mostly our psychology is designed to not really be that interested in what's right. We're interested in what's gone wrong in the past, what is wrong right now, what might go wrong in the future. And of course, we also do that thing where we spin ourselves into all these criteria about what might 1 in a million things go wrong. So we tend towards being dissatisfied and we want more. So we're dissatisfied with what we have. We want more. We're also constantly on the lookout for threats and what's wrong and what might be wrong. And there's another one that I talked about a little bit, which is this aspect of what's known as the comparing mind, where it makes sense from a survival point of view to make sure we're not too much of an outlier, that we compare ourselves with other people a lot to see how their lives are going, to measure ourselves against that. And on the one hand, that sort of makes sense, except that, of course, we always do that in an incredibly unhelpful way. We either do it as a way of trying to sort of feel perhaps superior to somebody, or we do this thing where we see that we want more from our lives because we have this perception that somebody else has more. And we don't have that. There's something wrong with our lives that we don't have what they have, and therefore we are miserable. So there are these 3 aspects, very powerful, fundamental parts of human psychology. What we call sort of the greed side of it, that we want more. The fear side of it, very powerful, that greed, fear part of it. What the fancy psychologists refer to, it's the desire aversion operating system. So the fundamental way in which we work is trying to get stuff we want, trying to avoid stuff we don't want, and then this comparing mind thing. And the problem is that when we get little bits of information, like our boss smiling, girlfriend frowning, anything, tiny little bits of information, your mother says something nasty to you when you're young, or somebody betrays you. And we turn those little things, we run them through the filter of greed, fear, and comparing to see what's wrong, what do I want more of, and how does this compare to other people, and how do I get more of what I want and less of what I don't want. So we don't run these little bits of data through some rational, logical system. We run them against our database of experiences and this program about greed, fear, and how does this compare to other people? And we make terrible conclusions. So, for example, as a child, and obviously a child doesn't know any better, but A parent says something mean to the child, and the child immediately takes it on. It's incredibly painful, and it assumes all sorts of things. We assume our parents don't love us, that we are not worthy, and we carry these beliefs around with us for the rest of our lives. We get betrayed. You have a girlfriend or a boyfriend and they leave you for somebody else, and you assume that means something about you, that all men are bastards or can't trust women or whatever it is. We take a little bit of information and we extrapolate. We make meaning out of it and we use that. And you can see why this makes sense from a survival point of view. We need to learn lessons. We need to make assumptions based on very small amounts of data for survival. And many times we are right. Something happens and you come up with some hypothesis about what it means, and you might be right. The problem is not that we do this. The problem is not that we extrapolate. And the problem is not that we make these theories. The problem is that we don't understand that we're doing it. We're simply not aware of the difference between reality and what we think about reality. We're not sensitive to what did we actually experience and what do we think about what we actually experienced. So there's reality, there's what happened. Somebody said something, you felt hurt. They said something, you felt bad. The feeling is real. But what you make that feeling mean is not really real. It might be useful, but it's not real. And becoming more aware of this difference between what's really, really real as opposed to what we think it is, or our beliefs, our ideas, our opinions, our views on it. These two things are very different. And we've got all these unfortunate ideas about how we're just not good enough, we're not intelligent enough, not smart enough, not funny enough, not disciplined enough, not spiritual enough, not, I don't know, you come up with it. Fit enough, thin enough, young enough, whatever, pretty enough. There are so many that we have these profound beliefs about who we are, and they're not real. But we don't see that. We're not aware of these very profound things that just aren't necessarily real. They might have some use. They might have some basis in experience. But if we can become aware that these aren't really real, they're just in our heads, if we can be aware of that, that is helpful. I'll tell you one other short story, and then I'm going to explain why meditation is so useful. So, one of my favorite films, and it's unbelievably tragic, but it's Jean de Florette. It's a French film starring Gérard Depardieu. And it's about this older man who lives in this very small French village somewhere in the Provence, I think. And he's incredibly miserable. He had a great love. Florette was his great love. And then he went off to war. And by the time he came back, she got married to somebody else and she had a kid. Anyway, this kid, the son of Florette, moves in next door. And he's got a bit of a hunchback. And it's played by Gérard Depardieu. And this is Jean. And this guy, he hates Jean. Jean represents everything he hates about his life, about the betrayal of Florette and about how she didn't really love him and she left him and didn't wait for him to come back from the war and all these things. Anyway, the movie is horrible and he makes Jean's life miserable. And in the end, Jean ends up indirectly, but fundamentally because of this man's activities, he ends up dying. Having been driven absolutely crazy trying to make all these things work, and this old man is stopping him at every turn. And there was it's a tragic movie. They made a second one about Jean's daughter, Manon des Sources. Anyway, cut to the chase. At the end of the movie, the end of Manon des Sources, you've been through 2 movies. It's probably 5 hours worth of movie. you discover his life, the old man, his life has gone horribly wrong as well, and it's all end up bad. And somebody explains to him that the reason Florette married somebody else was because she kept writing to him during the war to say that she was pregnant with his child. And he wouldn't reply. And she tried everything she could to lose the baby, but she failed. And in the end, she was going to have the baby, and she found some very nice person to marry her in spite of it. And the baby, of course, was somewhat disabled as a result of all the efforts she'd made to lose the baby, and had this sort of hunchback. So at the end of the movie, you find out that actually Jean was this guy's son. And you were like, oh my God, this is so unbelievably awful. He did all of these terrible things to this child, or to this man, because he was the child of his great love. And he assumed that this child meant she didn't love him. And it was just during the war. He just didn't get the letters. And so he had made a misunderstanding about the situation. He'd got some information. She'd gone off. She'd married somebody else, had the baby. And this kid shows up, and he does all of these terrible things based on a complete misunderstanding about reality. It's awful. Totally fantastically tragic, and rips your guts out right at the end of the second movie. And of course, it's what we do all the time. Maybe not quite as tragic, hopefully not as tragic, but there are so many ways in which our mind fools us because we don't distinguish. We're not aware of when we are making meaning out of things. So, meditation. What are we doing when we meditate? We've got this really weird exercise. I say, okay, pay attention to your breathing. When you notice your mind come in, try and let go of the thought. We start again. We go back to the breathing, or back to the sensations of the body, or pay attention to the sounds you hear. What are we doing? Well, what I'd like to suggest is that there's what's really, really real. What's really, really real are the sensations you experience. What you see, what you hear, what you feel, what you taste, what you touch. These are real. They're really, really, really real. And then there's all the stuff in your head. Two different things. It's not that it's not real, the stuff in your head. Well, obviously, that's the stuff in your head. But the pictures, the ideas, the beliefs, the opinions, all of the meaning that you attach to your experiences, those aren't as real as the feelings. The sensations you have, the sensation of breathing, the sensations of your body. So in meditation, one of the things, it's not the only thing, but one of the things we are doing is we are creating a separation between all the stuff in here, all of the stuff where you make things mean whatever you think they mean, as opposed to what's really, really real, like the sensation of your breath right now. That's really, really real. What you have to think about it, oh, well, I can't hold my concentration. I'm not very good at meditation. And what am I going to do on Saturday? If we go out for lunch, where would we go? We're in our heads. We're not in the real world. So it's not that being in your head is bad. As I said, this is part of being human. It's amazing to be able to take small bits of information and create all sorts of ideas and hypotheses and fantasies, and to be able to make meaning out of things is really, really useful. But the key is we have to be aware of it. There's a wonderful Jesuit psychologist called Anthony de Mello. And he said, there are only three things that really matter to be happy. Awareness, awareness, and awareness. That's it. So we are working on awareness. We're placing our attention in the real world. This moment, what you're experiencing, that's real. And we are distinguishing that from what goes on in our heads. So when we meditate, we are practicing this exercise of separating those two things. And then in the real world, we will become better and better and better at being able to distinguish when our mind runs away with us, when we make meaning that may be useful, it may be completely fictional and not real at all. Sometimes your boss is just smiling. Sometimes your girlfriend just has a frown. Okay, that's enough talking. Let's do some more meditation. And then I want to give you a new meditation technique in a little bit. So invite you to let go of everything I've just said, hopefully, and take your seat such that you're comfortable but alert, and take a nice deep breath in. And let it all the way out. Once again, take a nice deep breath in, but this time hold it at the top for a moment. This time letting it out very slowly, releasing any tension in your shoulders, in your face, in your body. Just like to invite you to notice the different thoughts, different tensions, different worries, what you're processing in your head right now. And just invite you to see if you can let it go. I'm going to try and anchor ourselves in the real world of this moment, of the sensations you're experiencing right now. And we're going to start with the body, noticing the sensations perhaps in your feet. Noticing the sensations in the lower part of your leg. Noticing the sensations in the upper part of your leg. Perhaps you're aware of so many sensations from your hips all the way down to the tips of your toes. Noticing the sensations in your chest. Noticing your breathing, lifting your chest and then relaxing. Noticing your back. Perhaps the heaviness of your shoulders. Becoming aware of the sensations of your arms against your side. Noticing your hands resting. And starting to notice the sensation of air as you breathe. We're placing our attention into the very real world of the sensations you're experiencing right now. This next breath. When you notice your mind jumping in, we're not going to fight it. We're very gently going to notice it, become aware of it. See if you can smile internally as you let it go, and return your attention back to what's really real. Sensations in your body, sensation of your breathing. One of the other sensations that's very real in any given moment is the sound you experience from moment to moment. But see if you can just experience the noise without your mind kicking in and working out what that sound means or what it is. Can you just experience the sensation of the sound from moment to moment? In this moment right now, you can be aware of the sensation of your breathing. Sensations in your body. And the different sounds from moment to moment. We're just going to go for a few more minutes. Just encouraging you to really try to anchor yourself into this moment as much as possible, letting everything else go. this breath, the different physical sensations in your body, the different sounds you experience from moment to moment. Every time you become aware of your mind, that's really useful. Building this awareness, seeing what it's doing. We're not trying to stop it. We're just trying to be aware of it. And then return our attention over and over back to this moment, this breath, these sensations, these sounds. Just invite you to take a deep breath in and let it all the way out. Gently connecting yourself back, noticing different colors, different shapes in the room. So awareness, awareness, more awareness. Can't have too much of it. Been playing this game a bit over 30 years. There are many, many layers to the onion, and it just, promise you, it gets, or at least my experience has been, it just keeps getting better. Get more and more distinctions between what's really real, what's in your mind, where do you want your attention to be, the different stories we make up. I was in the gym today and I was thinking all about how rubbish I was compared to the other people. And I was like, oh, look at that thought. Is that a helpful thought? No. So then you let it go. So obviously that's trivial, but so many ways in which once we start to become more aware, we can undo some of this strange stuff, become less attached to all of these ideas, beliefs, opinions, judgments we have in our head. It's a more fun way to live. Okay, so I want to give you another meditation technique, which is really helpful in this, but also just more generally, it's another one. It's a really good one to have. It's called See, Hear, Feel. It comes from a meditation teacher called Shinzen Young. And it's not that he completely invented it, but he certainly gave it this name. And I think he's sort of inherited it from various other traditions. But I think it's really interesting. And we've looked at what's really real in this moment is your breathing. So the sensation of breath. That's a place to put your attention to observe what's going on with your breath. That sensation you're having right now, that's really real. It's in the present. Place your attention there. What's also real? The different physical sensations you're experiencing in your body. What's also real? The different sounds that are hitting your ears from moment to moment. We're getting very in touch with the reality of our sensory experience. What do we see? What do we hear? What do we feel? And you can add in, of course, taste and touch, but generally slightly less helpful in a meditation because generally you're not sort of reaching out and touching things or smelling things, but it is really about becoming super sensitive to what you are experiencing from a sensory perspective from moment to moment. There is something else going on in each moment, and that is your attention. Your attention itself. Where is it? So I would love to believe right now that your attention is on me, but it may be, but it may not be. Might be somewhere else. But okay, so there's this idea. Your mind, let's go with your mind. So what is your mind paying attention to right now? What is going on in your mind right now? Is it saying something to you? Are you having thoughts? Are you processing ideas as thoughts that you hear this voice in your head? Are you hearing me talking and you're just very present with that? Are you paying attention to the screen and what you're really noticing is the screen in front of you and the different colors and the different shapes and me moving and my hand comes into focus and then it goes out of focus or whatever? Are you primarily visual in terms of what you're looking at? And often for a lot of people, we are visually based. So it might be that it's what you are seeing is the main thing in your attention. It might be that you are imagining different scenarios. So you might be picturing a scenario and you can see in your mind, maybe you and somebody else in a particular situation having a conversation or doing something, or you might just be imagining a summer's day, or something else might be visually in your attention, but internally, an internal seeing. And then you might be feeling something. You might be feeling bored. You might be feeling energized or interested or happy or upset or sad, or you might just be feeling maybe you've got a sore back. This particular meditation technique called See, Hear, Feel is really trying to get us to take a step back and really look at what is showing up in the front of our consciousness from moment to moment. So you've got this big field of consciousness. So this just general awareness. And when we start meditating, you might place that on the breathing, and that sensation of breathing is the thing that is absolutely center of your field of consciousness. But then suddenly you think about, I don't know, dinner, and all of a sudden you're thinking, oh no, what am I having for dinner? Or I hope I turned the oven off, or whatever. And suddenly this thought hits your consciousness and your breathing, gone. So what's front in your consciousness in that moment is this thought. You're suddenly thinking about the oven. Maybe you see the oven in your mind's eye. Maybe it's just a spoken thought and you hear the thought, oh, I've got to do the oven and I can't believe I'm so stupid and I left it on, and oh, the salmon's going to be burned, and oh, everybody's going to hate me, and that's it. I'm going to be homeless. Where your mind is going. So if that might be spoken, in which case you are hearing a thought. It might be visual. You might be seeing the oven. You might be seeing a scenario, in which case you're seeing something. It's a visual thought. You might then start to feel anxious, in which case that feeling of anxiety, that discomfort, that feeling that you really don't want, that might be front and center in your consciousness, that feeling, in which case that's what you're feeling. So what we're trying to do is to take a step back and see that frame of our consciousness and see what's going on. See what is grabbing our attention from moment to moment. So in this exercise, we're not trying to direct our attention anywhere. What's happening in this moment? What's really real? What's really real in this moment is what you're experiencing in your consciousness. And what we do in this exercise, just take that step back and notice every second or two, what is in my field of consciousness? So if you try and you sit, and if I ask you to picture a summer's day in your mind, and if what comes to mind is a picture, that would be seeing. If what comes to mind is you hearing the crickets or the larks on a summer evening, if you hear that, or you hear yourself talking about how you can't wait for summer, if there's a conversation going on in your head, then you are hearing. Your consciousness is experiencing hearing. On the other hand, if your back is really sore or stiff because you've been sitting for an hour, you are feeling. So in this exercise, I'm going to ask us to do, we'll keep it quite short to start with. I just want to sort of see if you're comfortable with it, if there are any questions with it, but let's try it first. And so I'm going to guide you into it, but a lot of this is about just seeing every second or so, what are you experiencing consciousness? And then you just label it. So it follows on from what we were doing in terms of noting. So you just note, see, hear, or feel based on which one of these you're experiencing in your consciousness. Are you seeing something? Are you hearing something? Are you feeling something? If you're experiencing some kind of memory of taste or smell or touch, we tend just to put all of those in the feeling category, just to keep things simple. So it's a really simple exercise. So that every second or two, you're just going to notice what's in consciousness right now. So if I were to do this right now, I hate doing this thing where I appear as though I'm meditating on camera, but let me just try and do this as honestly as possible. Hear, feel, see, hear, feel, hear. So I'm quite a auditory person. I experience most of my thoughts as a voice in my head. I've learned over time that's not entirely true. Often there's also a visual image with it. If you're experiencing two things at the same time, you are seeing something in your mind, but you're also having a conversation with yourself, just pick one. It doesn't matter. You don't have to be perfect with this. You can notice that both are going on, but just pick one. But the idea is to just get a little bit of a rhythm so that every second or so, or two, you notice what's going on in your consciousness. So it's about being really vigilant about just going for it, about just seeing every second or so, can you see what's going on in your own consciousness from moment to moment? So there is one other possibility, which is that occasionally your mind, the consciousness it's at rest. Not much is going on. It doesn't happen very often. It's glorious when it does. If you're looking and there's simply nothing there, there's nothing going on, you can just label that moment as a moment of rest. So you just say rest. And it's wonderful. And then very quickly your mind will kick in. You go, oh, so fantastic. I had this experience at rest. Well, then you're hearing something. So then your mind is kicked in again and you are hearing it. So, but that is the other possibility, is that there may occasionally, maybe for some of you it'll happen more often, but for me it only happens occasionally, where there's simply nothing there. Generally happens more towards the end of the meditation. Sort of somehow the mind actually gets a little bit quieter when it's being watched all the time. It loses any momentum, and so it just gets a bit more still in my experience. But let's give this a go for a couple of minutes. We'll just do a short version. and then we'll do a slightly longer version if in case there are any other questions. Okay, so I invite you to take your seat. If you need to stretch because you've been sitting down for a long time, by all means, get up, move around, lose any tension in your shoulders or in your neck, and then invite you to take your seat in your cushion or chair or wherever you are, comfortable but alert, and invite you to take a deep breath in and let it all the way out. And once again, take a nice deep breath in, but this time hold it at the top for a moment. And now let it out very slowly, releasing any tension you're holding in your face, your shoulders, in your body. Just noticing your breathing to start with, being aware of the sensation of air as you breathe, which you would probably experience as feel. And then see if you can take this step back from your mind, from your field of consciousness. And every second or so, just see if you can notice what you're experiencing in your mind as either see, hear, or feel. And just do this for about 3 minutes. Just encourage you to keep persevering. If this is very new to you, it might feel like quite a lot of work, but if I just encourage you to keep going, you'll find a rhythm, and then it can actually be quite fun. Just seeing if you can notice what's going on in your own consciousness. I invite you to take a deep breath in and let it out. And bring yourself back into the room. Okay, so let's do it again. We'll do it for a bit longer this time. Um, Try and do it for 10 minutes. Just encourage you to keep persevering. I know if this is new to you, it can feel like a bit of work, but my experience is that that's, in the end, that's a feeling. If you feel like, oh, this is really hard, either that's a voice, in which case you're hearing, or it's a feeling. Stay with that feeling of, oh, this is so hard. Stay with that feeling and really look at that feeling and just feel, feel, feel the frustration, feel the boredom, feel the annoyance, and notice what happens to that feeling. In a lot of these cases, by noticing these things, we stop their momentum. And that's what's I find really powerful with this, is that a really powerful thought, the moment you see it, it loses its momentum. Okay, let's give it a go. So encourage you once again to sit comfortably but alert and take a nice deep breath in. And let it all the way out. Then once again, take a nice deep breath in, but this time hold it at the top for a moment. And this time let it out nice and slowly, releasing any tension in your face, in your shoulders, in your body. Allow your breathing to return to normal. Once again, just anchor yourself in this moment to start with by just noticing this next breath. Really noticing the sensation of air as you breathe. Then seeing if you can start this rhythm of noticing every second or so what's showing up in your consciousness. See, hear, or feel. Of course, even with this exercise, some thought may certainly pull you away, and that's okay. Just very gently notice it. See if you can let it go, and very gently start again. We're past halfway. Just really encourage you to keep persevering. Notice what's in consciousness. If it is frustration or boredom, or just see if you can see that as feel and just keep going. Just a couple of minutes left. Possible sometimes towards the end of one of these that actually the mind does settle. You might experience some rest. If you do, just notice it. And if you don't, just keep going with the exercise. I invite you to take a deep breath in and let it all the way out. Really encourage you as we come to the end of the meditation, Really take your time, transition gently. See if you can notice what awareness, what attention, what presence you've uncovered during this session. See if you can carry that with you into the rest of your evening. Once again, taking a deep breath in and letting it all the way out. And then once again, connecting yourself back into the room, perhaps noticing colors and shapes. So that's week 4 down. Thank you so much for joining me in this experiment. I will be doing some more daily meditations this week. We'll be looking at all of the different mindfulness techniques, but including see, hear, feel. I hope you can either join live or pick up the recordings if they're helpful. The live ones are often at 8. And if it's just a recording, then I tend to have that up by 8 or 8-ish. And then the recordings then get posted about 9 o'clock-ish after the live session. So once again, thank you all so much for your participation. Hope you have a great week. Thanks a lot.